52% of Pennsylvania Democrats say, I don't know that Fetterman's a Democrat anymore. John Thune says, come join us. Is that even a possibility in your mind?
No, that's not. I'm a Republican. I'm not a Republican.
Oops.
I mean, I'm a Democrat.
MAGA supporter, Democrat in name only, and one of the most controversial figures in politics, John Fetterman, appeared on Chris Cuomo's show, where he ended up making what may go down as one of the biggest Freudian slips ever heard in a political interview. We're about to watch the moment when John Fetterman actually says the words, I am a Republican, while talking with Chris Cuomo. I also want to go over what led to that moment, explain why it quickly grabbed so much attention, and give my own take on what it really says. So with that, let's get started and watch what happened.
Like, is it really necessary to force the dude to say, fifth, 111 times, those aren't great optics, but hold them accountable? Absolutely. And point out some of these things, but overall,
if you're about accountability, I don't know how it begins and ends with Tony Fauci. It makes no sense to me. And look, is he guilty of hubris? Who isn't? Especially in that room, Senator. The idea that Tony Fauci is distinctive in a room full of senators about people who are, smelling their own scent a little too much. Let me ask you something about politics while I have you, though. You've got problems in the party and your perception heading into an election in Pennsylvania. 52% of Pennsylvania Democrats say, I don't know that Fetterman's a Democrat anymore. John Thune says, come join us. Is that even a possibility in your mind?
No, that's not. I'm a Republican. I'm not a Republican.
Oops.
I mean, I'm a Democrat.
I thought you made news there for a second, Senator.
No. I'm a Democrat. I just said that in an early. I've had op-eds. I just had an interview earlier today saying I'm not becoming a Republican. The Republican. Trump liquidated a couple. Really good Republicans. Overall. And it's like overall among Democrats. That's reflective of a lot of just misinformation. As a Democrat that votes 90% as a Democrat line, but I'm very popular around Republicans, too. It's really, there's really no explanation overall, but I've been a guy standing with Israel. I think.
Well, there's your answer. John Fetterman says there isn't really one clear explanation, but then the very next thing he says is, I stand with Israel. That alone explains everything, John Fetterman. You answered the question yourself without even noticing it, and your own words make your position completely clear for everyone listening.
And strikes.
Standing with Israel is one thing. Standing with Bibi Netanyahu is something else. Do you believe that the American presidency and the Israeli prime minister should be as closely aligned as they are? Do you really believe that America and Bibi Netanyahu's strategic interests are aligned?
No. If you want to go there, if you want to criticize, sides that are in a war, I'm going to criticize Hamas. I'm going to criticize Iran. I'm not going to criticize Netanyahu because he's the Democratic leader of Israel. I'm always going to stand with Israel through that too. The Democratic Party becomes very quick and easy to criticize or blame Israel and a genocidal state, or they're the aggressor. That's absolute bullshit. You know that, and I know that Israel was doing what was necessary. Send those people home. Don't take hostages. Don't attack Israel the way they have. Now, disarm. Now, like a peace. That's how war really works. That one side has to surrender, and now Israel's not allowed to prosecute that to the end right now. So Iran is the bad guy. Hamas is the bad guy. America, we're on the good side. And of course, Israel is too.
Right. My question is more about the specific politics of what got us into Iran and who convinced the president that this was a good idea. And it's way too simplistic to say, well, the regime can never have a nuke. We haven't done anything since this war started that makes it any less likely that they get a nuke. And all we know for sure is they hate us more than ever. And every time we hear we've reduced their capabilities, John, they reach out and touch us in the region, just like today.
No, it does make it less likely. What guaranteed that they were going to have a nuclear bomb is if they didn't bomb Iran last year in June, Midnight Hammer, they definitely would have been on course to build a nuclear bomb. That's a fact. I'm not going to criticize the Obama deal, but that wasn't clearly what's going to work. American presidents have been trying to deal with this for 47 years, and they've been unsuccessful.
You think that we're in a better situation now than we were under the JCPOA?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. We've wasted most of their military. We've killed their leadership, and we blew up a lot of their nuclear facilities. They're in a much better space for sure.
Really?
Absolutely.
Because now they hate us and will do anything to show it, right? They have new leadership.
Now they hate us. They've
always hated us. But you've definitely boldened them up, right? That's why they're starting to extend the hostilities, right? That's why they're getting their proxies involved in ways that they weren't before this. All I'm saying is it's easy to say the regime sucks.
That's not true. That's not
Nobody's
true
going to disagree.
It's not. Hamas has not been activated. Their leadership getting picked off by the Israel. I fully support that. Hezbollah actually effectively was begging for another ceasefire. And Houthis, they're just a bunch of crappy pirates. They can fire off a rocket every now and then. What's truth is true. Iran has been significantly diminished, and that's a much better thing. And now I think it's appropriate what's done in overall. And you can agree or disagree, but overall, Iran has been the reason why that brought us to this point. It's not because America did something wrong. It's like America, I think, was forced to deal with this regime.
So Fetterman claims the country is in a better position now than it was under the JCPOA. He brushes past the fact that gas prices keep going up, the cost of living keeps getting more expensive, and well over $100 billion has already been spent on this war. None of those issues seem to change his opinion. He also refuses to criticize Netanyahu, yet he continues to describe himself as a Democrat instead of a Republican. The truth is that most Democrats do not support Netanyahu. I even looked at the polling, and among Republicans, Netanyahu's approval rating sits at about 45%. For Republicans younger than 50, it drops to around 30%. Whether Fetterman doesn't see it or simply chooses to ignore it, he's backing a position that fewer and fewer people are willing to support.
I hope in the not too distant future, but hope isn't a strategy either. Senator John Fetterman, I appreciate you taking on the questions. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
So Fetterman says he isn't a Republican and insists he's still a Democrat, but every time he goes on shows like this, how often does he actually talk about the issues that matter most to Democratic voters? Nearly everything he discusses seems to lead back to Israel and his strong support for it. He never seems willing to criticize Benjamin Netanyahu. It's rare to hear Fetterman spend much time talking about Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, higher gas prices, the rising cost of healthcare, expensive prescription drugs, affordable college, infrastructure, or the many other concerns that Democrats, along with millions of Americans including plenty of Republicans, deal with every day. Instead, he continues to focus on Israel, defend its actions, and support policies that many people strongly oppose. He even argues that Donald Trump's war is a better approach than the JCPOA put in place by Democratic President Barack Obama, even though most Americans oppose that war. Still, Fetterman keeps saying, "I'm not leaving the Democratic Party. I'm not a Republican." But after hearing him accidentally say, "I'm a Republican," earlier in the interview, it almost seems like that Freudian slip exposed what he really believes. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you still believe John Fetterman is a Democrat? I'm not even talking about whether he's progressive, because he clearly isn't. Do you see him as a centrist Democrat, or does he come across as someone who's completely in line with MAGA? That's definitely the impression I'm left with. I honestly struggle to think of many people outside the MAGA movement who defend Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel with the same level of passion as John Fetterman. What's your opinion? Share your thoughts in the comments. And one more thing, do you think Chris Cuomo should have pressed Fetterman harder by asking how he can still call himself a Democrat when so many of his positions seem so different from where most Democrats stand? Let me know what you think below.